Welcome. I'm Johannes Jansson, and I'm the Director of Creative Writing for one more month. I'm super pleased to be here celebrating with you the class of 2026. This class has been fantastically diverse in its aesthetics. Going back to when I taught the teaching practicum, there was so much discussion of different genres, oral traditions, verse plays, prose poetry, and other hybrid forms. So there's been, I feel like that sort of characterizes this class, the diversity of approaches, but also an ability to come together in the classroom and in DCO Commons and in the now almost legendary film nights at the Browning Cinema. Thanks to Paul and Cunningham and Ricky Herbst for that. This class also strikes me as an incredibly well-traveled class. I feel like they won so many grants, they almost transformed the entire degree. People were going to Southeast Asia, San Francisco, Europe, very cool. Also thanks to the Franco Institute for giving out the awards, and also with their great skills, they actually transformed the grant giving guidelines at the university. At some point, the grant givers came to me and asked me how they should judge these creative projects, because they finally realized after years that you guys were writing creative things as well. That's critical things. So, thank you for transforming the degree in that regard. But most importantly, of course, what strikes me about this group is incredible dedication to their art, and to have seen the tremendous growth of all the writers that you'll hear from tonight has been a great joy. And tonight, we're going to celebrate them by hearing them each read short excerpts from their fantastic theses. The way this is going to happen is everybody's advisor will introduce them. They will read for 5 to 10 minutes. This will take some time. Afterwards, when Vince has read, I will announce some of the prize winners. Very exciting. And then most exciting of all, there is a cut the cake ceremony happening out there. And the cake, if you have seen it, it's something to behold. Incredible. I think it's the best cake, best looking cake we've had ever. All right, so thank you for coming. I'm really looking forward to this night. First up, we're going to have Xavier introduce Proph Dauda.
Good evening, everyone. Or good afternoon, sort of another between. In post-colonial studies, the work of the writer often suggests the artist must contend with varied models of hybridity and syncreticity. Wilson Harris, Kamoy Brathwaite, Rushdie suppose the epithet coined by the Australian poet Les Murray when he says, quote, "Time broadens into space," end quote. These writers' work disrupt notions of history and the ordering of time, when time suggests stagnation and the currents of change fall upon a rural community as example. What we unpack is how linearity is undermined by the forces of discontinuity. We see this in the work from writers as varied as those working in the diaspora to writers finding the in-betweenness in what it means to exist in states of contradiction. I think of Nuruddin Faral's Links or Nepal's debut Miguel Street. In these works, we see communities in Somalia and Trinidad, respectively, changing under the eyes of their citizens and travel from exile backwards in a state of contrast. In Proph Dauda's work, which we will hear tonight, I see the same great exploration of this friction, where the negotiation of the modern and the past must reconcile with the personal conflicts from those in a state of flux. Whether these subjects travel away and return or are attempting to build roads through farming communities, Proph's characters are searing depictions of this mature and expansive excavation of the post-colonial. His work is keen in understanding, empathetic at its core, and luminous in its revelations. Please join me in welcoming Proph.
the shores of America. It was getting cold on the plane. I wrapped myself in a thin blanket, Bucha gray. Dear passenger, the blanket was provided for your comfort throughout the flight. Please return it to your cabin crew when requested or at the end of the flight. Thank you for flying Ethiopian and have a safe trip. And have a pleasant trip. The cabin crew built a food cart down the aisle. Beef or chicken? Chicken, I responded, as if foreshadowing one of the stereotypes towards blacks in Alabama, for that is where I was headed. Black people have chicken. The young woman handed me the tray. In one compartment there was the chicken I had asked for. Just beyond the partition was some kind of grains. The third area of the tray held cheese, a roll, butter, crackers, and some biscuits. The crackers trumpeted their Irish provenance. Since 1851, Jacobs, the Baker brothers, but the cookies came from Africa and were labeled the same, a heavyweight vegan treat. The meal reminded me again that I was leaving the Southern Hemisphere behind and heading to the north. Malawi was a former British colony. After years in Alabama, I realized what America called a roll, we call a bun. English biscuits came to be cookies and crackers. The world carved up into compartments, much like that dinner tray. There was the illusion of separateness, perhaps, but I was proof that one could cross over those dividers easily. Hey Joe, what is this? I asked the American missionary I was traveling with. She and her friends had raised me at an orphanage in my village from the age of 11. The grain-like mystery food was sour when I tasted the pinch with the tip of my tongue. It was as if it had been neglected for 3 days without any preservation. I almost spat back onto the dinner tray. I don't know, she said. For the record, this is the sort of food we are going to have for the most of the trip. By the time we get to America, you'll be sick of it, she added. My immersive baptism by this northern hemisphere period and a little front continued with the flight attendants. Next, dragged the tea and coffee can into the sugar cream. Cream. I started back that internal conversation I began at the airport in Malawi, asking myself what answer she was seeking here with this mysterious line of interrogation. Both. I thought that was the wise response. I only belatedly realized that by cream she meant milk. And if I had said cream, would she have just given me the milk on its own without sugar? I never imagined drinking hot water with only milk in it. In my country, sugar is a must and milk is an optional seasoning. I slid open the tubing sachets with my 440 and emptied the granules into the disposable white cup, which, like so much else on the plane, announced its link to Ethiopian Airlines, the new spirit of Africa, a Star Alliance member. The granules from the sachets were basically one teaspoon put together and did not sweeten my tea at all. Today, as I look back to my days in Alabama, I know people in the West go by counting the number of teaspoons. At home in Malawi, we go by taste. We don't count teaspoons. We shovel on and on until our tea becomes sweet. Forget about justifying the means. It is the end we are seeking, tea to our liking. My taste buds were in full revolt. I looked at the small screen in front of us. We were in the middle of the Middle Passage. I thought of my Yao tribe and how I get asked for my last name by members of other tribes in Malawi, chiefly to trace me to the Babani trade. My ancestors had their fair share in poaching other tribes on behalf of the Arabs who came from the eastern coast of Africa. Thankfully, I was on the plane, up in the sky, distancing myself from any side of the mishappen of human history. The same way I wash my hands with a few blood flames in the small town of Tuskegee in Alabama brought it down. You African blacks, you don't like us American blacks. You sold us away. We finally landed at O'Hare International Airport. Our next flight would be Columbus, Ohio. And like Columbus, I was confident I had landed on a new continent. When I read the history of the American, I learned he died without knowing that he had discovered the new world. My bone would twitch in the grave every time his romance was such a milestone. He had proudly written in his letter of discovery the wonders of this new world and how he forcefully captured the Native Americans and ferried them across the great waters to Spain to act as his witness before the royal sea. But I was sure that I had accurately arrived at my destination from the speakers and stations that greeted me after the jet bridge. The Iwo Jima stage, the Statue of Liberty, Thomas Jefferson and others. The prints on the walls were very intimidating. Clear customs faster than you can say cheese, protecting our nation one face at a time. When I collected the miscellaneous arrivals, I saw at the entry point Africans like myself, Arabs, Indians, Mexicans, Europeans. Little did I know that America already had stories about us waiting for us. All you can hope for is that one ancestor of yours who came off the raft earlier than you was a good ambassador for what he said. What are you here for? The customs office asked me when my team came. I'm here to go to school. I said trembling. I have heard of people being sent back right at the entry point. Do you have any money on you? No. He chuckled. You don't have any money on you? No, I don't have any. I looked at Joe. At the U.S. Embassy in Malawi, we were told to have some money handy so that we were not a burden to the U.S. government. Do you have any relatives in the U.S.? Yes, I stammered. Which part of the U.S.? Another tricky question which would potentially deny me entry. If I had any relative in the U.S., were they legal or those who overstayed their visa? Actually, she's here. That's my sister. I pointed to Joy. I mean, we had called each other brother and sister. No way she was going to let me down. The Bible she read to me at the orphanage said we were brothers and sisters. The letters I sent to my American sponsors about my shoe sizes and receiving Jesus as my Savior always mentioned that I was their family despite them being white and me being black. How? The immigration officer looked at her up and down. Yes, I said. He just nodded and hammered this down, admitted. Welcome to America, said Joan as if she hadn't been with me the whole flight. The home of the brave and the land of the free, she added as we walked to the baggage claim. My sweaty hands held onto my passport. I pointed and called the vaccine certificates.
I'm going to introduce Daryna Gladun, someone who, in her poetry, relentlessly searches out new forms and modes, a narrative and footnotes, a pageant, a TV jingle, in order to write a poetry that both counters and accounts for political injustices. When reading her work, I'm reminded of Susan Sontag's wonderful essay about French New Wave filmmaker Jean-Luc Godard from the 60s, when she describes his mode as hypertrophy. That is constantly finding new forms and sources in culture and bringing them together in his films. It's not a surprise that Daryna, while here, has also written fiction and a play that was performed. I look forward to hearing what she's going to read tonight and in the future.
death of the father figure. Act 1. My father took the batteries out of a toy piano so that his children learn silent alphabet. Soldiers on galloping horses, what do you cry for? Sound of the monoplane growing and subsiding rapidly. Grounds chirp and palms chirp, and devilwood chirps, church bell chips, and schoolboys chip, and schoolgirls that blue and gray, and uniformly silent. Silent corridor, students frozen at their desks, pencils scared on the paper. Голоси шаркають по паперу, на чистого світу, мало знайомі, чужі. Их танцы эдкие, кружевные. Пытаюсь рассчитаться за постную булочку, но ни копеечки не возьмет у меня продавец столовский. Захаживает к мамочке, рассматривает полупрозрачное бельишко с облачной тутой, она ему фиги тычет. Нечего. Да и не было такого вовсе. Дурында, ты все навыдумывала. Чи то у прострелені черепні коробці, чи то на дні розбитого кінескопа живуть не мої спогади. Mom and I do our pencil dances around absent father figure, number 102711. Comes with the rocking chair, voice box, is sold separately. Is he asleep or dead? He's dead, Mama answers. He's dead for 12 years. He is asleep, Mama answers. Asleep for 12 years. Women spin in the kitchens in nylon tutus while their men are dead, asleep. Of the food scraps and the loose threads, I make my language. Absent father figure, number 102711, hid batteries of the toy piano in his sleep so I could master silence. Pleasing my father and all my father figures was, I steal neighbors' mail for daughterhood purposes. Press white stamps to the window glass. My room is an envelope. I'm the letter sent to my absent father. Is he dead or asleep? He's dead. He's asleep. In his rocking chair. All right. Stop crying. My empty window. 19-year-old me pulling a 15-year-old me, pulling a 9-year-old me, pulling a 5-year-old me, pulling a newborn me into the father's arms. Indefinite number of arms. And each of me produces immediate cry. And father's eyes covered with 2 silver coins and a stripe of gold on his forehead, and a stripe of white on his forehead, and a prayer written with a green crayon all over his face, coloring father's toenails, 5-year-old me, by his feet, and 40 silver coins in a pouch by his feet. Father says, each coin sold separately. From before my time, and precisely to 5:36 p.m. on October 27, 2011, Martha Screes is me. The second poem I'm going to read today is also in 2 acts, and it's called Bathroom Scene. Act 1. A tap is loose. Water will never subside. From the off-white tiles, my slippers escape through the cracked open door into the corridor, but I stay wrapped in folds of my grandma's body. Mother enters, knee-deep, washes hands in the sink, smiles at me through the mirror, and exits. Cast iron bath, filled with this stream water solution contains multitude of my face of water spilled on the surface of water, and I am under. Grandpa enters, covered in charcoal. Waves hitting his waist. Grandpa washes his hands of charcoal, and the sink is charcoal. Grandpa exits. My body, chipped off a vanity mirror, scars corroded enamel surface of Grandma's skin. End of Act 1. Act 2. The tap is loose, water never subsides. From the off-white tiles, my slippers escape through the crack-open door into the corridor, but I stay wrapped in folds of my hands. Mother enters, knee-deep, washes hands in the sink, smiles at me through the mirror, and exits. Cast iron bath, filled with glycerin water solution, contains multitude of my face above water, spilled on the surface of water, and I am under. Grandpa enters, covered in charcoal, waves hitting his waist. Grandpa washes his hands of charcoal, and the sink is charcoal. Grandpa exits. Bathroom light changes to red as a blurry image on Soviet time photo paper. I resurface. The ocean faces me drop by drop. And the last poem I'm going to read today is The End of the Ending Things. 1. What comes now, what comes next, what comes after, inseparable from my body. February 22, 2022, early morning. The multitude of my mother's marches. Their shoes beat Potsdam street like a drum. A line of my mother soldiers salutes me uniformly. All her faces, my face. Mothers grow smaller and disappear in the pile of smoke on the horizon, followed by 12 military helicopters and sounds of the machine guns. Same smoke, 10 a.m. Enters the multitude of my fathers, faceless. The faceless fathers don't end. Wrinkled pixel with tags, black boots, loaded guns, the multitude of me, the multitude of my eyes, myopic eyes, tangible world beyond recognition. Sound of the multitude of my screams, secondary to the image of the multitude of my tones, and the darkness that births all those tones, preceding the war. Machine gun sounds, waves hold themselves over the open lips, stuck between the front teeth, all in multitude. Silence means silence, means multitude of silence and excess of silence stored in multitudes of my fathers and mothers and eventually eyes. Preceding the war, during the war, all emerges in multitudes. Not a single unmultiplied body in, not a single unreplicated language in, not a single word, but at once all the words nobody's singing, recursive lullabies. Ever marching multitude of my mother's archives of infinite eyes stored in my mother's bellies. Sounds of gunshots fleeing the multitude of her bodies. Gunshots inside of her bodies remind of the years preceding war. Multitude of my mother's, back then a singular mother, bleeds. Gunshots and she bleeds, but I'm not ending. 2. Did I become all at once, or did several spinning cylinders make the infinite number of replicated eyes? Look like a singular, indivisible body, 24 frames per second. Whose skin, whose bones, whose consciousness, whose language, whose dreams, who I? Dreaming, I ask, I answer, I ask. Try to count what is me, what is mine, what isn't. I break into multitudes at the point of war. This is all that matters, all that doesn't end. 3. Multitude of my unborn children at the point of war shares a single name, picked 2 decades before, pink dress in my top drawer, pink jumpsuit and hat, multiply to the point of silence. Embroidered pink flowers on the dress, multiply in the multitude of my bodies, never ending. Catherine, never ends. I remember her body and blood. 4. The multitude of my daughters in September is turning 4. 5. Multitude of me enters the space occupied by the armed forces of void. For what is the word for a woman whose child never born? What is the word? Multitude of my fathers sings lullabies to the multitude of my unborn daughters, faceless. Multitude of my mothers this multitude doesn't know. The multitude of reliable eyes paints Catherine as a pile of smoke in the morning sky. 6. The end beneath my ribs. Beneath my ribs. The end. Thank you.
Yeah, you're introducing me. I'm Heather.
It's really a pleasure to be introducing Adeline tonight, who comes to us from upstate New York, where she played a central role in organizing the Adirondack Family Book Festival, bringing award-winning and diverse writers to upstate New York, an effort that reflects both her vision and her commitment to expanding access to literature. During her time with us at Notre Dame, Adeline has continued to deepen and extend this work. As a gender studies minor and an affiliate of the Literatures of Exiles Initiative, she has participated in a global intellectual community devoted to questions of representation, displacement, and historical memory. In the classroom, in workshops, and in public-facing literary spaces, she has consistently brought rigor, commitment, curiosity, and an ethic of engagement that distinguishes her as both a writer and a citizen of the literary world. Adeline is one of the most perceptive, original, and ethically attentive writers I've had the privilege to work with. Her fiction is lyrical, voice-driven, and formally ambitious, shaped by a sustained inquiry into gender, sexuality, and class. What is most remarkable is the way her work traces the reverberations of large historical forces through intimate individual lives, particularly those at the margins of social power. It is writing that is at once intellectually serious and deeply felt. Adeline understands literature as a collective endeavor. She has been an engaged and generous member of every community she inhabits, whether as a teacher, an editor, or an organizer. She approaches these roles not as obligations, but as extensions of her artistic practice, bringing to them the same care, discipline, and ethical attention that define her writing. Please join me in welcoming Adeline Gladun.
I've been forgetting this was happening all week, and now I'm gonna cry. It's okay, that's what happens. Happy to be here. This is a story that I wrote originally in Ireland that went through a massive transformation, and I will dedicate it to actually the genders department. Some of them. I'll start my time. It's called Guido Takes the Suburbs. Guido sometimes likes to put on red lipstick and drive his bike around the high school English teacher's house. He decided a long time ago that this wasn't a morally questionable action, as Guido had graduated from high school nearly 5 years ago, and the high school English teacher is new. That Guido doesn't have a driver's license adds to the illicit quality even more so that the English teacher is recently divorced. His wife having left him for her yoga/part-time bodybuilder, who Guido heard from the grapevine was named Mary, and sometimes was seen throwing the English teacher's wife over her shoulder prior to the divorce. One might call this foreshadowing. The red lipstick was Italian, left over from the days of his mother's obsession with Italy. Now all things Italian are stowed away in 4 boxes in the corner of the attic. It's there that Guido found the lipstick, as well as an imported Italian magazine, which, while mostly illegible to Guido, had his own name circled in red multiple times, leading Guido to surmise where his mother had gotten her inspiration after the birth of her first and only child. Still hopelessly American, suburban forever, despite her obsession, she had only read the name and so didn't know how to pronounce it. Instead of the typical Italian invocation, Guido now answered to Guido and grew tongue-tied when his mouth tried to shape the words Bella in the bathroom mirror. The lipstick is so old, it smells strange, and between the suburban cement, Guido's old bike seat, and the early summer sun, it dripped enough to make Guido look like he was bleeding. The English teacher was only 2 decades Guido's senior, and his name was Sam. He was slightly overweight, blonde, and gray, a previous college athlete. He reminded Guido somewhat of a Nazi general, and in Guido's fantasies of his fantasies would sometimes pretend they were role-playing and Sam was called Heinrich. And if Heinrich penetrated Guido enough, if there were enough lipstick marks left on Heinrich's feet, then those dirty American pigs would all die, and then they could take the whole country except for San Francisco, because that would be where they stick all the boys and few girls who called Guido a fag in middle school. Guido is very bored. He sometimes has fantasies of killing Heinrich, seducing Mussolini, and killing him too. It's as nice to pretend to be the hero as it is to pretend to be the villain. In 2018 suburbia, some houses have American flags hanging right beside flags striped with blue, and in the yard baked up dog shit. It's not that Guido's own family home is any different from the homes he passes by. Pale coloring, fat garage, various windows, wide smooth driveways with boats defrosting and pink scooters. Guido's house is just dustier. After Guido graduated from high school and after 2 years when it became apparent he was not interested in finding a job or moving out, his parents left on an extended vacation to Central Florida, and Guido has not seen them since. Guido vaguely remembers his mother asking, "What about Italy?" only for his father to reply, "I hate leather." Every few weeks, Guido gets a postcard from them, the same picture of the Everglades. The back always follows the same tradition. It's very hot, no wind like Illinois. Please stop calling sex hotlines. Guido's parents never call. Guido likes to imagine living in different houses and different lives. He'll reach out his hand and mimic shooting a gun, face smeared in red, hair so dark it's blue, hand pasty white. Most of the neighbors wave when he rolls past. Guido puffs out air when he pulls the imaginary trigger and the invisible bullets spray into their chest. Guido is as familiar to them as the synthetic oak trees. He wants to be as familiar as the sprinklers on their lawn, the news on their television set, and the porn in their search histories. Still, he always keeps riding his bike in the middle of a barren road. When he looks up, the sky is wide and blue, endless, the same as the pedals on his bike. Guido knows this way to Sam's house well enough that he often gets lost in his own thoughts. He turns this way and that without even realizing it. Home must be the place where you close your eyes and you open them, you're always somewhere new. Even the children play quietly. The English teacher has been living in their neighborhood for over a year. The only time Guido has ever talked to Sam had questioned Guido's pronunciation of his own name. This action, both revealing Sam as not only well-read but well-traveled, had made Guido so instantly and suffocatingly horny, he has not been able to talk to Sam since. Arriving at Sam's house, Guido takes a pause in the front lawn to swallow some saliva. The garage door is wide open and there's loud jazz coming from the window, which means Sam is either drinking or has just reread The Great Gatsby. Guido just shrugs, reapplies the red lipstick, and begins to take his laps. It's not every day he rides around Sam's house. Guido doesn't have a part-time job or bills to pay. His parents Venmo Guido $1,000 twice a month, a little of which he uses to buy necessities, most of which he uses to buy the skirts he sees old high school classmates showing off on Instagram. He wears the skirts around the house, watches old World War II documentaries while lounging around on his parents' dirty IKEA furniture and the couch covered in plastic. When the clock hits 3 a.m., he puts on his boxers and one of his mother's old bras and sprints up and down the street. It's important to take care of your body. The habit of riding around Sam's house started not long after they first talked. Guido had no desire to talk to Sam again. Guido would be willing to be touched by Sam metaphorically. Guido could turn Sam into Robin Williams from the Dead Poets Society, but it wouldn't have the same impact thematically without the orgy of the other boys. So instead, Guido started to ride around Sam's house, and after a while decided this is all he really wanted, to exist outside of both Sam and himself. After about 4 laps, Guido stops at the corner and leans one foot down on the sidewalk. Sam stumbles out of the open garage barricaded by trumpets. Guido supposes he's been drinking then. From his spot in the corner, Guido is vulnerable to be caught watching Sam. Most people in the suburbs only look straight ahead, and Sam is no different. Sam goes to the edge of his lawn and starts raising his empty hands above his head, his hands flat against the sky. Sam's chest is puffed out and his face goes red quickly. Suddenly afraid Sam is having a heart attack, Guido drops down from his bike and slowly wheels it over until he's standing over Sam, the long shadow of him blocking out the sun. Sam doesn't stop his movements. His legs are crossed, his arms move slowly, his elbows making perfect corners in the air before straightening themselves to the sky again. Guido cocks his head, kicks out the bike stand, and crosses his arms. Sam only nods his head at Guido, whether as a thank you for the shade or a gesture to get lost. Guido doesn't know. Guido stays and watches Sam. There is no one else in the street, but there are probably whole cities looking from the windows. With every movement, Sam wheezes through his teeth, veins bulge out of his neck. After a while, Guido finally realizes what Sam is doing, lifting weights. Guido laughs short, brief, and not unkindly. Somehow he feels relieved, or maybe empty. Fantastical is the word that comes to mind watching Sam lift his imaginary weights. Guido hardly remembers the English teacher he actually had, but figures this moment is the only time he's ever received real, pure education. Guido watches Sam lift his arms a few times before he digs the old lipstick out of his pocket. When Sam raises his palms to the sky again, Guido gives him the lipstick. The lipstick folds gently, then disappears into Sam's hand, who finally stops his exercise and stares down at the tube, confused. When Sam looks up again, Guido is gone. I have time for one more poem, so I'm gonna fly through that. That's okay, but thank you. Okay, this I read at my first year reading, and I thought it made a nice circle. Okay, this is called Monsoon Season. I wrote in Paris. We did travel a lot. So when I went to Paris, it rained every night. I was lucky in that way. Before I went, everyone warned me about Paris syndrome, but no one told me that it mostly affects Japanese tourists. I've always wanted to go to Japan. When I was in Paris, I kept watching myself, thinking I'd rather be there. According to Wikipedia, the Japanese romanticize Paris so much that when their dream finally comes true, when they meet paid well enough to be rude hospitality staff, and the pigeons pickpocket their phones, they begin having panic attacks, paranoia, and hallucinations in that order. Paris claims there's a hotline for Japanese tourists suffering syndrome, but Japan claims that hotline does not exist. In Paris, I sometimes felt like I was being followed. I can speak a little Japanese. I think speaking a stranger's language is a transferring of life. Paris is more beautiful when it rains. French tourism pays for the rain explicitly. The crows don't caw, they cigarette cough. In the neighborhood where I stayed, I witnessed a slow murder, gentrification. I was never sure if the people in Paris were passionate or depressed. I was never sure if I was walking left or right. I was so homesick, I'm not sure if I'm depressed or passionate. Why romanticize Paris? French is not a common language in Japan. Japanese is not a common language in France. On my way to the Eiffel Tower, there was a building called Maison de la Culture de Japan. I looked it up. The website is only translated in French or in Japanese. They had a kintsugi exhibit, many cracks with gold. The Japanese manga artist Kaiji Nakazawa only survived the atomic bomb because he was standing beside a wall. The woman he had talked to just before evaporated. He was 5. In Paris before Hitler did a tour of victory and visited the same places I did. Isn't it Paris beautiful, he asked. French art students drew sketches of peers in the internment camps. The sketches are faceless. Paris and Japan were on different sides. What's the difference between an atomic bomb and a genocide? Efficiency. The Eiffel Tower and the Tokyo Sky Tower. Why romanticize Paris? On Duolingo, I practice the frequent question, Doko nisu ni masu ka? The most important question in the world, of course, where do you live? As stated before, I was homesick. I get homesick very easily. I have many different homes. I thought everyone was going to know I was American right away, and they did when I spoke, but many times I was asked for directions in French. If I was quiet, no one knew the difference. I know more Japanese than I know French. By the time I arrived in Paris, I had 3 different languages in my head. I'm not very good at any of them. After, women who slept with German soldiers were dragged in the streets and had their heads shaved. Returning kamikaze pilots represented the defeat of Japan, so they were ostracized. Liberty, equality, fraternity, comfort women. After Pearl Harbor, instead of the 3 million planes FDR promised, we made 10 million. In God we trust. Without the Second World War, America might still be in the Great Depression. Many people have killed themselves jumping in the Seine. The Seine does not rot, but it saves, it smells. Japan's suicide force is called Aokigahara, or Sea of Trees. I had great passion in Paris. I didn't like the color of the sky, I didn't like the fast bikes, I liked the taste of the water. If you ask me why I started to learn Japanese, I have no answer. I just know I'm homesick. When I was a kid, I always felt like I was being followed. Paris syndrome mostly appears in people who are already mentally ill. Tourism is a war. In Paris, I was a soldier. I didn't relax. I moved through it. I watched a young boy aim his pointer and his thumb over the glass of the Louvre. Where did he learn that? I assumed he was American. The tower of a gun is a well-known shape. Violence is a universal language. I was mistaught it. I can only talk to myself. I learned too much. I could not relax in Paris. When they dropped that bomb, a little child was saved, only because he happened to be picking up a toy behind a wall. And God we trust. It's beautiful, isn't it? 3 languages, Doki Nisuni, Moscow, Maison, drop a bomb cadet, drop it. Please call this number if the result exceeds expectations. Locked up in Tokyo, it only rained at night. I was lucky in that way. Where you live, you have to tell me where you live. I live here. I live here. Thank you.
Well, I'll introduce Helen.
Hello. It is my pleasure to welcome to the podium one Dr. Helen Qua, and as importantly, a woman who, like the moon, is a decrepit yet lingering ingenue, by which I mean Helen's leading lady, Ms. Mao. Ms. Mao is the center of a rippling, crudescent, divinely exquisite, and hyper-productive diction that confects her. She is a femme of such hot, unholy force that an entire 5-act Jacobean hyperdrama constructs itself around her, complete with a chorus, antagonists, rivals, a tumor, and the moon, the tumorous moon. So virtuosic and non-virtuous is our Ms. Mao that her exceptional and irrepressible auto-opera uncomfortably begs the question, what is the cost of such uncommon mimicry? Is language just another instrument of confinement? Can anything be loosed from it? From this gallimaufry, what can be born? To close with a quote from a very important medical text, the Pharmacopoeia Londinensis, or the London Dispensatory of 1678, quote, "This is one of the greatest gallimaufries I ever saw, but it was intended as an antidote against plague." And on that, I welcome to this podium Dr. Helen Qua.
Can you hear me okay? Try and stay close. So Daryna is with me up here still because we're going to hopefully perform a little bit of this crazy ass play that I've written over the last 10 years. As Daryna has kind of awesomely summarized, so I feel like maybe giving context, my own context is redundant now. But yeah, I would not have written this play if I hadn't come to this program, or if I hadn't come to the US. It's really changed my ambition, and pushed the way that I've been writing, so I'm deeply grateful to the faculty and the department here and everyone here that I've met. Yes, let's not get emotional. Okay, so this play, Ms. Mao, it's a verse play collection, as Daryna has said, inspired by The Roaring Girl, the Jacobean play, which I fell in love with, and it's set the course of a night in a fantasy hospital. There are pigs, there's a pigsty, there are matrons, there are nurses, there are seamstresses, there are porters, and there is the night of the moon. So the main character is Ms. Mao. She's like a nefarious lady who is has pickpocketed throughout her life and is now wound up in this hospital, sort of malingering at the beginning. And then over the course of the play, she becomes sick with this tumour who kindly Joelle is going to play for us this evening, called Cock Queen, which is an old word for like a masculine, coarse woman. So I'm going to just go into it, and I will read from different sections of the play. So we're going to start with the narration, which is the knight who's going to narrate. So, the knight. Miss Mao seeks out herself in reflective surfaces, the vision of a diplopic, the paranoid gaze that multiplies facts. Facts inconsequential to Miss Mao's purposes. She floats from room to room, and bay to bay, sweet to sweet, singing in her sweet ditties to her band of pigs. She knows when she is being sized up for the slaughter, the Proph Dauda turning heads behind each blue curtain. Nurse, nurse, they call out. She'll trouble them for their mistake. She loves a yellow veil, that shadow that cuts in. Enter Miss Mao, wheeled underneath the arbour in a hospital bed by a band of nurses. It is night time, suspended in moonlight that falls through the trees, where Miss Mao lies. She wears a male crop doublet and a woman's safeguard made of hospital gown material and white satin. Miss Mao sits upright in bed and looks towards the moonlight. They call me a scurvy woman that mocks her natural sex. I give off ether that would shun a cure. I give them rat stain instead of love. If only they knew that word, love, the dark throat, anterior viscus wed to winter. I pity those luxurious traps, petty male masters, belly bottlers, thigh scratchers. Now my spleen's up. Thou shalt run on, but before I will infect, enter the ethmoid of a trencher, that perforated plate striking up the crispy galley, tally-ho, to hunt the lining, coat the globe, whitish yoke, to my own pain and cost, that burn within. They call time on this story. An introduction must be postponed. It's time to disrobe into facility. Miss Allen hospital bed, just as the doctor leaves stage left, the cock queen is growing inside her breast. I wish we had a hospital bed.
I'm going to do a lot of it.
Imagine me lying down. Stand up, yes thee, look here upon my breast, what do you see? A can, a yellow dog, a bright blue stitch. Stick him in the sides, my mother would say, before she died, after we arrived along English shores, succumbed to the mosquito bite. I could have kept her swollen body. I forget how it smelled, only salt and copper remain. I long to hear her lullaby about the child who would fall out the basket in the willow tree. Lullabies grow long, stretched out in the hand. This sickness took hold like a filthy blanket on my chest. Rows of soldiers pinching the nerve, scuttle-shaped rangers, symphonic ruba. I conceal before and again the festering lines of cellular debris. Eternal breast, you belong to me. I crowd the waiting rooms. I linger long, etched in my hospital bed. I have lost my crop doublet for a gown. I'm known to all the sisters by my voice alone. It is tiring moving through this illness of mirrors. Mirror, light, mirror. And so the madness is electric in me. From the great tracks of grace and gracilis, charge with me the lines of matter, cuneatus. Cut the line, toe the boiled inferno. The appearance wraps my face with colours of dubious fibre, clung to the litmus nodes. Extract me. There are hairs stuck to the mirror and the wall, follicular nourishment. I crowd the strands to fill my narrow shadow. In memory land I rest, repellent subject. Could I repent now, sin upon sin, those little kisses in my 2 red shoes? The antidote is a vanishing angel that takes my hand, touches the burn that marketh me. She knows my fate and what I've lost to gain a few men's watches in return for this daring life. I steal the first cycle of the scar, dominate what may live inside the wound. Moans crease the mouth, tracts of ether flow through the O, buckle relief like sweat caught in the nook behind my knees. Lift up the cassock, let's learn the scorch, the petals do fulfill me. I defile the hearts of men, the wheels do turn. 2 feathery dogs chase a carriage, mon crevasse, accepting mud into their open jaws. Hounds play, splendor mandibulaire. Beggars, housebreakers, shoplifters, footpads, I've hooked them all. No antiquated crook. I love my trade more than any born ruffian or tawdry watermen. The face, my favourite locus, to steal a moan, my shiny grift. This is my harangued undoing. The night again. Miss Al is not green with envy for the moon, but with sickness, real sickness, that bloats the coast of her body, that makes her organs swell and plump and gorge, that makes her gorgeous. She is green with bilious fermentations that bubble in the right iliac fossa. She has become aware, like those that are rich but not contagious, for the very first time. She stops encountering the world from anything but her feet upwards. She releases seam after seam. Miss Mal breathes and breathes, remembers the feeling of being chased gleefully as a child, tries to picture a bird shaped like anything but a hungry mouth. Hanging below the arbour, I lay my arm out to rest, along this lilting ground. I feel the surge within 2 currents getting on, lytic pressure, sclerotic knots in the bones. You saw the death knell, the lucency on a film that marked my end. A groan, you see right through me. What line that falls around, what light that falls around my body now, half in, half exposed beneath the sheet. My body, a pair of hanging jaws of a hound, a lax and effluent, as meaty as a piggyback, hairs wanting fresh water to pull up, waxen shafts have lost their glimmer. Look at this light. I project onto hospital bed, flat surface, flawed landscape. Enter cockweed speaking from within this mouth breast.
Here I seed, asleep in the facial planes of red against red, rut against rut. I creep along the alimentary canal, ticking off errands to seep into the system, take the celiac plunge up to the gastric matrix. I am so happy when I am released in fulsome tides, enzymatic pulses, rivers of chyle, groans of bile, pickled in the nephron's hairpin style. I love the smell of the place. poker and current and old childhood cupboard where she used to hide. On occasion, I am retropetrinomial, as in concealed. I mean, reconstituted from this floor. Screed and scuttwork have filed me down to the knees, belt double on the wave, neuropathic tide. Oh, bravo. If only pain could kill. Melasma, phantasma, open her up, just the sides are neat when you enter the mossy middle, violaceous debris sticking to the sides, seeping. A strange weather into hospital gown. Revive the sense, take the photograph in the palm of your marked hand. I meddle with the humors, with the misericord. I settle in. I cycle through many masks, learning how to stage an ending rapturously, sonically. Oh, 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 I love the last one, that final plunge.
I'm eating in my bed, I'm loving in my bed, I'm tired in my bed, from here come fetch me, I'll not come down for nought. I'm profuse in bed, I'm delinquent, I'm gorgeous in a hospital gown.
Rain, rain, come again another day. Functionating in my splendor, let's see the inside out of this placid circus. I'll rot if I want.
Antigone's claim.
Fulminant terror into tissue, cell begets cell. I'll cut off the oxygen to this chest wall, this room of kings and cock queens.
I'll bud into violacious bud.
Trespass on my wound, florid pink sights budding up from the maternal stem, the cauliflower curl,
My breast a lost system.
to air and sun and camp design.
The night. Our heroine is dying. She is in the drawn-out process of not knowing the window from the door. She no longer tries to escape. Her Lilliputian dreams escalate, become the hand of the porter, the pale lover sunk down to his knees, the matron's blossom, the pig's bellies, the seething breast that exudes, her breast friend, the only maiden made of the same stuff, mixed up matrix on the anterior chest wall. Miss Val is both the seed and the stone of the flower fruit, hothouse flower, brutish stone. From Miss Mal's maternal milk, you could say they've grown together. In this bedside manner, I toss and turn the better fate like rows of coins. To face we enter in fleshy splendor. He carries me to and fro. I have no energy to resist. My breast weighs heavy like an eye on its final opening. Myasthenic lag, grave oculus, left and right, bilaterally toes towards the ground. I sink between the white flesh of gauze, the cotton tassel, alginate sores that breach the border. I seep into the cloth, the body mattered and matters, nattery wound. I do encroach the piles of cloth that undo me. The gauze hangs shut like a wedding veil. My flesh gives frill and frills aplenty. Embroidery tissue, symptomatic sinus. The robe is opened. It smells inside to out. I spread beyond the cloth, organza breast, malignant twine.
Bent down my stranger face to anoint you with heavy wanderings. A cell turns towards another. It's other, a red code, a double hit in the matrix, two radish checkpoints dismissing the stage. We become the stage, unruly lament. We curve and scope and dive towards the core. Come up with more malignant tide. I dare to offend. My flesh is fiendish. My flesh is yours. We stage a death scene with morbid fascination, signaling sirens as the lights go out, and around the bed my life rises up, out. Create the folds of plasma that burn down into cells. We make hair and nails grow where everything else fails. Oh, monotonous life, we release you. Stir tides of silk, molten rubor, hint-tinged life running through vessels. We are the Hans and Kelder, kindred children, we box up and snuff out. I, born an outside child, looking in.
Stick to the roads, the forest floor. I am led by muddy paths towards a bud stuck in the throat. The earth rises, dirtying the sheets. The forest floor, a minge of skirt, moss pays green on its fringes, overgrown spongy felon, creeping up the path. On the faceless sheets I sing, lonely island breaks, falling from the bow. I will follow after the moon, light and shade, the shade of a bed leg. I hear the wheels coming.
And delicious, but not altogether unfraught pleasure of introducing to you Daryna Gladun, whose thesis, Cruelty's Theater, is itself considerably delicious and not altogether unfraught. This is a thesis that is at once cosmic and intimate, at once lyric and determined to disrupt and reinvent lyric reading, at once attuned to the immediacy and microclimates of the sensual, and attuned to the theoretical, social, pedagogical, and familial macro formation in which we are all, like frogs, increasingly cooked. As this sensuous, brainy, irresistible theater unfolds, the eternal elements of lyric, image, phrasing, pacing, music, tone, continue to unfurl like a miraculous placental fabric, a close, uncertain, and precious battle flag. Please welcome to the podium, Daryna Gladun.
Thank you, Joyelle, and thank you to Notre Dame for this entire 2-year program, this incredible opportunity, and it's a good time. This is for my mother. On body's cruelty, I slice through the river with my palm, fairy moons orbit in my belly, an open sea that is diving. Here emerges the wave, bloat, damp, over winnowing earth, I glimpsing with moss-coiffed iris. I watch the sky turn from black to blue, a reverse bruise. Thesis out. This is from our toes, spurt of blood. The stage direction is silence, and the immediate dialogue following is face me. I wrote this on the Amtrak. Night floats outside the window, and I hold my swollen breath in my palms. The sound of gasping beats against my eyelids pulse. My discursive tongue sits wet with syllables that smell of yesterday's rain. The petrichor rots on my pink flap. I itch my face off. I itch the entire evening off my skin, the loose of it hanging over my organs like a Soviet thick curtain that collects dust near my mother's wedding dress, holding brown stains of her virgin blood and all the things our warm bodies ache for. I forget to wet myself. My lips, my pubic bone unzipping down my waist. Night stills outside for a few hours, fogging up the window and my soggy breath. Spasmic fantasy. We clog our wet faces with cellophane and watch fowls steam the lining, shrieking chorus of bursting mouths, piping in pleasure, menacing and distilled, our stale breath trapped in the jaw's hinges. We open our mouths to the clouds and grow teeth with rain. Window still, and one of the few poems written about my father. Flow-stained teeth secrete hum's pulse, echoing into the wall hole my father's fist left, the sound passing from afternoon to evening, blue to ochre. I'm unhearing moon's whispers, which are as thin as the silver of his matted hair, thick-bellied, moving to a whimper. He grasps the twigs of my wrists. Water me, I tell him. My teeth aren't growing in. Water me with milk. Water dilute me to fog, water my fog. I am a milking sunshine from air, coloring in the moon of my nail with its rays before I place a cup of tea in his bark-thick palms, his shadow folding into chair as dusk floods into the bedroom, cooling milk like hair, his contours softened in the dying light, harbingering evening to our echo-stained apartment. Dynamos. У мамы нет молоко. Ее грудь сушится, и волосы сидеют, как испорченная кожа. Body ode. Sexed body, tender to your ligaments, thaw under rain. You blush pink under the cool blue contours of patchy dawn. I watch you watch me. As you lie there in the bedroom, your swollen eyes sitting in the mirror, its stink haunting the room as a powder-soft ghost sifting through memories, while clouds stretch like arteries beneath morning's fabric. Organ machine, you gloat like sun dropping its seedling. You plant its warmth in your belly, the digestive tract jaundiced and opulent, illuminating sand that sits within your tubes, clogging cement. Cutting up. The skyline chills as it stretches, flickering in sexual exultation. I'm electricity spasming through telephone wire. I'm muttering onto porcelain while a flower grows from a wound in my thigh. I put on the lights and put my bones back. I pull the silk of my veins, sipping into fabric. I etch dark words onto virgin snow and let them bruise and itch my skin with the sharp edges of star. Monosyntax. The sickness of your lips spills into the bent corners of my mouth. My cheek of torn paper, I rubber rip the vein of besotted neck, tender as the ache of deformed shadows. I'm walking with my liver loose and belly full of evening's wet echoes. My feet elongate into shadow form onto the wooden floor as dawn curdles onto clouds beneath the bone-thin shades. Mama sits in the corner, counting sagging hairs like change, the copper of them heavy in her palm as an old tongue sitting damp with ungushed syllables. She hits the nerve of her finger. The rubber band veins coat blood and sinew. The moon's teeth click as it slips through in velvet slippers, crouching under door, its fallaway strands of hair skirting floor's hem. Mama awakes with heat swelling her limbs and wiring her jaw shut, winding on memory's prefix and lingering as a sprout of dirt. The origin du monde. There's a synapse there over caked skin, kiln cracked, distended orifice whose lips I'm coming onto. I am the sentence of piercing suckle and in my spit, in the sun floor, in the sphincter, tender, I am coming onto. With my silence swelling in gums, I shift the organ, particle and flesh, buzzing to him, swollen, elastic, enticing the suffix, and the sexing gaze of unfucked hips, rippled architecture of bloated evening. I'm pulsing against your radio heart. I am clotting your artery. Come find me in the origin of your universe. I am rotting in your pore. Mood prison. Be techno-stained, skin cradling light from refracted bodies and their malicious floats. I am fracturing in. I become shell-like. My porcelain skin stinging what the objects are I find inside my body. A stream of echoes and gurgles, and my rubber skin gliding at a rhythm. I rearrange the sound of combusting elastic, carrying noise-filled cysts. And there's one more. This is more of a sonic piece that some of you might have heard of. I'm humming onto clutching onto tooths, rattling the lac hyacinth purple. I return to damp bean, root apparatus of my swelling noise machine. I retire my larynx for warm technology. And the last poem of this collection is called Exit Stitch, because I was thinking about exiting in and rupturing and some very violent kind of coming out of. And I think it might have been about birth, but I'm not so sure yet. All that's left now are the primordial flexes of my unmoving tongue, spasming in Euclidean patterns and spitting through the tooth. My medicine throat is tired. The medicine tastes like earth and river in my wet mouth. The bitter pill swings and curves through my esophagus. I am not a memory, just a machine, a bluebird stitching its wings into clouds. Thank you.
I'm going to introduce Daryna Gladun. Daryna's work is fascinating because of its molecularity. It's at once diaristic and planetary, both private and political. Her poems are constantly moving and changing and doubling back on themselves. 1 minute she may be criticizing an artwork just to turn the critical gaze on herself the next minute. 1 minute she may be full of doubt, the next full of joy. I'm reminded of the 1960s underground film critic Manny Farber, who wrote in favor of what he called termite art. In difference to traditionally heralded art, what he called white elephant art, with its gem-like inertia, Farber advocated for termite art, or art that, quote, feels its way through walls of particularization. It's always moving. Daryna also stands out to me as somebody who really made strong ties to the city while she was here, not just as an outreach coordinator, but I think as part of her artistic practice, where she always seems to be reaching out, making webs of social connections. So welcome.
Oh, it's such an honor to be compared to termite art. Thank you, Johannes, and thank you everyone who has been a part of this journey, too many to name. So I'm just gonna go. The poem bursts through me, 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 like the alarm clock of arousal, an itch that injects me with the urgency of 2 a.m., conversations frantic to summarize history. My curious gaze hooks on the clouds shape-shifting in the ceiling, on the edges of the objects they haunt, on the refrigerator heaving its burdened sigh, fading into smoke, leaks from my nostrils. I can be bug girl, smiling at that awkward cricket on my hand, eyes popping, my eyes, his knowing eyes. Cat girl, squeezing out purrs, playing twisty baby, biting out of the blue. Mud girl, with a pet spider in her shower of stone, praying to the mantis, seeking communion in the most fertile particles of the soil. I can also be creeping affect, the syrup that pleasantly stings where stairs collide, the sweet knowing of mutual understanding that pushes desire forward in the cycle to tumble dry. The buzzing alarm jolts me back into the poem with the solemn sense of importance of a kid finger painting. Most webbed filaments are the fuel of my song. I've been trying to escape the idea of representation, but it's hard when you grew up, aching for approval. Look, I'm doing it now. I got it right. Yes, you did. I'm so proud of you. Relief. On the other hand, some parts don't want to escape and are more concerned with the continuous arrival. The day is perpetually not enough, so we ritualize to make it so. I happen to not be so good at those rituals. My rituals have other, inconsistent, gaping timelines. I'm no longer that frustrated Odysseus in a Penelope body, forcing myself to love knitting, wishing I was the one out at sea, not the one looking out the window, longing for the sight of his ship. It's a whole odyssey within this perimeter. And I'm Odysseus's ambition and Penelope's ability to stall, and Calypso and the Cyclops and the sirens and the ocean and the ship. I've been initiated by Hestia into the underworld of deep home, the nest, a spider web full of dust and papers, snapshots caught like flies, far more enthralling than sea voyages. So now, leaving the house is hard, and I didn't take a shower after we snuggled on my bed because I liked the smell of rubbed, so stagnant, a respite for my constant fluttering. Rubbed, smoothed down, my points of tension poked, jabbed at with fierce tenderness by you, anybody, willing to play vulnerability charades with me in the dim light. In this same bed, where I turn now, clutching for the poem that can translate my body, as well as your tentacular touch. My name is Echo, the perfect mirror for Narcissus, a lyric of bottomless projections. Stubborn little echo that plays along with anything that moves. My biggest goals in life have always been to be good, to be important, which equals to be loved, forever and ever, so I won't have to worry about anything else. The thoughts will finally cease, and I'll allow myself to forget. But I'm not there yet. That time is not yet now. I need to make time. I need to produce time. I need to give birth to time out of thin air. I need to squeeze in one more thing. Every day I wake up to the accusation staring back at me. The sun rises with the accusation that I'm not doing life right. The shape-shifting weather accuses me daily. The capitalism that makes the world go round is rife with exclamation points of accusation. The heterosexuality that birthed us is a dance of accusation. The accusation muddies up the air in the world I wake up in every morning. These notebooks, scraps of paper, intrusive thoughts, files that fill up megabytes like flies, are compulsions of an accused mind, a plotting mind, a mind that seeks to leave an archive, to pass down boxes, to leave her descendants homework, to be haunted by stories that were never her own, to house them in her living flesh. Perhaps writing was always this for me, an exercise in anticipated memory, a huge question, drowned in a yawn that makes me very itchy. I will never be cool. My cheeks will always burn. My heart will always pound. My mind will always jump. My stomach will always roar. Shame is my oldest companion, and even her I've learned to love. And some things can be said without words, but I prefer with words. I spit them out at the end of any nonverbal thread. In the humid forest, heavy like my own waters, my vapors, and my mosses, brimming with mushrooms that appear with the fertility of thought, with the will of the whispering trees, the fungus that ferments between every gust of nearby stream, after echoes of movement, the swell of a tickle, residual imagination, both anchors and trails, both brimming and expectant. It soothes me to find myself in an ecosystem like me. Since my intuition, that jumpy flesh at the center of the wound, is connected to eternity, it has the knowledge of what I will need to remember when I lose my memory. The question is whether I will be able to access my writing in a dimension without flesh, in which the I may no longer be. Probably not, but it may still have mattered that I wrote it. Matter to some universal reader of the imprints of time, the only kind of omnipresent God I can imagine. Thank you.
All right.
Filmmaker Robert Bresson wrote, "My movie is born first in my head, dies on paper, is resuscitated by the living persons and real objects I use, which are killed on film, but placed in a certain order and projected onto a screen, come to life again like flowers in water." A similar, strange, alchemical process happens with a novel. Death of the idea and the words we write, out of which is reborn the text we edit, which dies in revision, only to be reborn in the mind of the reader. This is an arduous, uncanny, and often ungrounding process. And it's been a privilege and a pleasure to go along with Vince Vasudevin as he developed his manuscript, Forced Existence, from idea to draft to thesis. When I first met Vince, I was struck by his enthusiasm, earnestness, breadth of knowledge in his chosen genre, and his ardent commitment to the work of writing fiction. These same qualities have carried him through and helped him refine his vision into a tight, compelling narrative. Forced Existence was born as a sprawling, epic dream of a civil war on a generation ship on its way to land on an alien planet. Died on the page and was reborn as a murder mystery in space, focused on an unlikely pair of complicated, contradictory detectives, which maybe he feels like was killed as a thesis. I hope not, but I do hope, and I believe, and I have faith that we will see it reborn on a shelf, Barnes & Nobles or somewhere, as a novel by Vince Vasudevin, the first of many. And so I'd like you to join me in welcoming and
So for context, because I like over-explaining myself, this is, the way I like to explain my book is that two detectives walk into the wrong book. They think that they're solving a murder mystery aboard a generation ship, but they're also swept up in a mutiny and a conspiracy for the fate of colonization once they reach Proxima Centauri B. And this is the prologue, written from Gabrielle's POV, and you'll see what happens to her real quick. The Thesis would collapse in 7 days, but Gabrielle Nova would die much sooner. Escaping the radioactive haze in the starship's corridor, she limped through the hatchway, her office door locking behind her. She gasped for the familiar air tainted with overheated metal, catching a whiff of how much she reeked from skipping 4 weeks' worth of showers. Picking out the glass shards dug into her face, then wiping the blood that gotten in her eyes, she realized she'd been too absorbed in making the final tweaks to her experiment. There was no way to block out the fresh memories of the carnage. Flash burned into her mind. Bone piercing through the bridge of Lem's nose and out his cheeks, as if his teeth had driven upward, cracking the roof of his mouth. His tongue stuck in one of the sinewy whorls in his face as his flesh slawed off, his fist leaving a fractal crack in the one-way mirror before his body went slack. She'd been scrambling to find her pistol while her research assistant was too busy dying at the hands of that thing, that glowing boy. But all she found were spare charges for communicators and those brilliant blue eyes staring back at her through the shattered glass. Gabrielle had enough common sense to run, even though her black combat boots were too stiff, pushing through the discomfort in her left leg and popping her hamstring. Lem, who spoiled the lab mice in the genetics department with extra morsels of cheese from the mess hall. He'd helped transport the subject back onto the ship this evening. She remembered the thick glasses that made his eyes look like wobbling moons. Otherwise, she wouldn't know what to call the sludge caked to the floor of the observation lab. The experiment wasn't supposed to have gone like this. She and Lem had prepped the subject, administering the appropriate drug cocktails and concentrated bursts of radiation. Enough mnemonics had signed up for the trial that it gave her a migraine trying to remember their names. It shouldn't have happened this way. If anything, the two telepaths should have conspired against her, cycling Gabrielle out the airlock so her research assistant could take her tenure-track position. She'd observed the pair going through the standard operating procedure, confirmation of the 3 laws of mnemonics, establishing mental link, and reporting their silent conversation. The whole massacre had taken place right in front of Gabrielle, but she still didn't know exactly how or why. She listened closely to hear if her subject was breathing outside her door. Silence, except the ticking of the air vents as the Thesis creaked between the stars. A sequence of sounds came rushing back, meat falling off the bone and being squashed underfoot, bowels wetly releasing, caught breaths that never escaped, laughter, but not Lem's. Gabrielle shoved her bookshelf across the office, wedging it in the hatchway. She remembered assembling it after she'd earned her professorship, calling the purchase her pride and joy. Didn't think textbooks on mnemonic theory and behavioral psychology could possibly save her. But still, anything to stop the glowing boy from establishing a telepathic link and overwhelming her mind with lethal thoughts. Her heart failing, her lungs collapsing, her neurons shriveling. Don't let it touch you. Lem's last words. The door dilated open, and pure light stepped inside. The faint blue of Cherenkov radiation shimmered through the splits between textbooks. On the other side, the glowing boy stalked her. Gabrielle shielded her squinting eyes with one hand, wiped the other on the leg of her jumpsuit, then slid open the top drawer of her desk and grabbed that pistol she wished she had earlier. She couldn't make out the glowing boy's eyes, let alone his face, if her test subject even had a face anymore. But when he bent over, peering through the gap next to her family picture, she knew where to aim. A rattle came out of the glowing boy's throat as he dropped back his head, opening his wide, pitch-black mouth. Drool splattered against the steel deck, and an antiseptic smell filled the office. Gabrielle made the mistake of looking down. Her feet trembled as if the ship had been struck. She braced her body against her desk, steadying her nerves from the sudden bout of vertigo. The bookshelf ripped apart, its wooden flames splintered, yellow-page textbooks strewn across the room. Her test subject seemed like he was smiling. Gabrielle fired a shot from her pistol. The bullet curved slightly as it sped toward the subject, pulled by the ship's Coriolis force. She couldn't tell where she'd aimed. Definitely didn't hit center mass. Up and a little to the left, piercing the poster by the hatchway. When Gabrielle realized she'd missed, she twisted her wrist and opened her mouth so the barrel would fit. The glowing boy curled over her desk. Gabrielle dropped the gun and cradled her hand, both burning bright red. She pressed herself against the farthest wall of her office, and her jumpsuit snagged on the sharp, uneven paneling. Loose black hair dangled in front of her face. Tears fell from the corner of her eyes. Her pale skin flushed from the heat. She'd pissed herself, warm and wet fabric stuck on her thighs. He leaned closer as if to speak. "You understand," Gabrielle said. "Remember?" The glowing boy ran his slender, scorching fingers across her lips. Then his luminous nails cut into Gabrielle's flesh until they were knuckle-deep inside her mouth, sizzling against her jaw, touching it until the bottom half of her head snapped, careening out from the rest of her body, bone, blood, and all. She would have screamed if she had the breath, but with her lungs giving out and only the upper half of her face still intact, it was more like air hissing out of a broken hose, crying at the light radiating outward as the glowing boy inundated her mind with what lay beyond the cramped metal sectors of the Thesis. Not heaven, not hell, just space. Thank you forever. Good night.
Campus novel. Before we go into prices, I also want to say as I mentioned, I am the outgoing program director, and I want to thank you, Paul, for all your hard work and for tonight. So the first prize I'm going to hand out is the Samuel and Mary Ann Haso Poetry Award. Samuel and Mary Ann Haso Poetry Award is awarded to the graduating MFA student whose work reflects the humanistic ideals and commitment to poetic craft exemplified by Samuel Haso, and 1949 Notre Dame alumnus. And he's still going strong, right? And sometimes he contacts Paul in the office. This year we had 4 dazzling poetry theses to consider for this prize, each very different from the next and proceeding according to its own coordinates of excellence. The thesis that has won this recognition this year is distinctive for its overall conception and cohesion, its range and polish, its technical stamina, and the time-traveling way it compiles high and low dictions, colloquialisms, song lyrics, medical terminology, stage business, and other modes of address and distress to create a capacious, time-traveling, urgent, and unforgettable voice that is the eponymous Miss Mall. This year's Haso Award goes to Miss Mall's creator, Helen Kwan. Second-year student for their special contributions to the creative writing program, namely for distinguished achievement and contributions during residency. It recognizes a student who has been the most involved citizen in the program and one of its best writers. This year's winner of the award is Daryna Gladun. This prize is awarded to a distinguished graduate of the creative writing program as a post-graduation year of residency and writing time funded by Nicholas Sparks and judged by an external writer based on the quality of writing and the likelihood that the submission will be published or developed into a publishable book. This year's winner was Daryna Gladun. Lance Olson was the judge, and this is what he wrote. What I love most about Remembrance Day, an excerpt exploring 2 kinds of combat, growing old and military foolishness, about the intergenerational power of land on us and in us, is its wisdom, its empathy for its 80-something widower protagonist, its researched command of its material, its muscular use of a second-person vocalization that works to enmesh the reader in its thematics, its elegiac rhythms, and its surprising use of language and shape. This is an extraordinary opening to what I'm confident will be an extraordinary novel. Congratulations. Cutting outside, make sure if you hurry because you can see the cake before it's gone because it's remarkable. And can we give one more round of applause for the graduates?